Yeah, it was a good stream the other day, I thought. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
I really enjoyed it. I guess we could call that episode 18.5.
Yeah, the podcast replacement service, as you suggested we title it. Okay. I think it's about time we started this podcast. Episode 19. What do you think of that?
I think I'm not going to attempt a voice retort. That's what I think.
Come on, man. I thought we could do a good New York mafiosa back and forth.
For the whole app.
No, certainly not. People would get sick of that. And when I say people, I mean Lawal would get sick of that.
I really enjoy Clamps from Futurama.
Oh, Clamps is great.
Clamps. I got
Futurama was just great in general. Didn't you say you've been rewatching it recently?
Yeah, for some reason someone's getting away with just streaming back-to-back 24/7 episodes of Futurama on Twitch, so I just dip in occasionally.
It's great. Yeah, how are they getting away with that?
I don't know. There was a Simpsons channel doing the same thing that went down not too long ago.
Right.
But it took a while. It was running for ages.
To be fair, it's just good promo. I mean, Simpsons is on loads of channels anyway.
Yeah.
I know it's just on Disney Plus these days, actually, I think.
Yeah, I've been wondering.
Got all the rights to it.
About that to friends saying, when's Futurama going to go over? But I think the rights are Now TV or something. Someone else has them at the moment.
Oh, okay. They'll come over eventually, won't they? Because it's all Fox and Disney bought Fox.
I would have thought so. It's a great program. It'll
happen. Well, yeah, Futurama is... basically, The Simpsons went shit when Matt Groening went to work on Futurama instead. And that's when The Simpsons went downhill. And Futurama, for those, whatever it was, 3 or 4 seasons before it was, originally cancelled, was so good.
Yeah, excellent,
it was just...
It's just... The whole thing is just absolutely nailed the vibe and it's just, consistently funny. Whereas, Simpsons can be, charming in the rest of it, but it's definitely not consistently funny. It's definitely the older stuff that is more genuinely funny.
The Simpsons series 3 to 9 or 10 are excellent. But
these days it's just kind of the characters on screen and that's enough for some people.
Yeah. Oh, it's naff these days. But yeah, Futurama was just really dumb and I enjoyed how dumb it was.
One of my favourite jokes that made me genuinely laugh out loud was they go to Zoidberg's home planet and he's like, oh, hello. And he's like, and then the other character's is like, Dr. And Fry's like, wow, is that your real name? And then he's like, wow, geez, Fry, wait till make fun of his speech impediment. And it's made me laugh so much.
Zoidberg's hilarious. They're all just great characters.
Did you ever watch...
Good news, everyone.
Did you ever watch Disenchantment, the Matt Groening series on Netflix?
Yeah, I watched all of that.
Yeah.
I've seen both series of it. And it's good. It's really watchable. I don't think it's hilarious by any means, but I think it's just really good.
That's exactly how I feel. It's kind of... Actually, in a way, it's not funny, but it's really enjoyable to watch. I just really enjoyed watching it, but I didn't find it funny at all.
The characters are good, and they do fun stuff with the story, but it's not it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's just enjoyable. So would recommend that.
Great.
Maybe we just need to start another podcast about cartoons.
Yeah, maybe. But equally, there's no reason why we couldn't talk about them anyway.
No, because you push buttons to turn on stuff on the telly, don't you?
That's true.
Anyway. Let's engage the throttle to turn on the podcast episode 19. I'm reaching down to the throttle, powering up episode 19. It's a futuristic throttle.
To throttle at the portal. To go through the portal of the episode.
Let's throttle at the portal.
Oh, God. That's horrible.
I've got the same speech impediment as the person from Zoidberg's planet. Let's throttle at the portal. Let's do it! Hey! And now here we are. I don't know. I couldn't work out if I was still in the pre-theme tune or post-theme tune moment. I was like, what? Should we go? Hello?
Whoa,
Whoa, we're not there yet. Now we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to episode 19 of PB Pushing Buttons, the video games chat podcast that you love to listen to and we love to do.
Video games chat is the other guys.
Oh, sorry.
But they're also good.
They're also good. Sorry. They are video games chat podcast and we are a video games chatting podcast called Pushing Buttons. Thank you for tuning in to another episode, Mark. We had a very upsetting issue in that we had pretty much recorded this episode in its full entirety last week, only for my computer to hard crash and lose everything. So
the irony of which is that we were talking, we're in the height of the news segment and talking about Mac and Apple. and their new chips and the possible improvements and all that sort of thing, followed by Bellum's gone. What's happened? We've lost everything. What are you using? A MacBook Pro.
A MacBook Pro as well, not just a MacBook Pro, because it means so. It's such a professional piece of kit.
Yeah. Anyway,
basically overheated. Anyway, we're here now, and we're gonna probably regurgitate a lot of the stuff that we had said that you never heard, but we're going to make it just as fun as if it's the first time we're saying it.
That's for sure. And we're going to start by saying thank you very much for watching our first YouTube video, which was the Hyrule Warriors demo impressions that we put together. It hit 100 views within two or 3 days, which is a surprise to us because we're obviously not that huge on the world stage of YouTube and that sort of content. So if you are one of the people that went and gave it a watch, or maybe watched it twice, thank you very much. And also thank you for tuning in last week for the podcast replacement service, which was the live stream. We had a lot of fun. We had Gary and Geordie join us again for that, actually, which was really good fun and great to spend some time with them actually playing some games. We played some Apex Legends and Star Wars Squadrons, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really, really good. And I was just thought it's actually, I feel like it's either very soon or I think it's a couple of days until Hyrule Warriors comes out. And I think potentially by the time this episode is out, it will have come out. So maybe we'll give it a little share again, just to, help people consider if they want to buy it, or if they haven't yet, go and play the demo, because the demo is free for Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah. It comes out on Friday the 20th, and you'll be listening to this on the 21st.
Yes.
On Saturday or beyond, so it will be out.
Are you going to get it on day one?
Do you know, I think I might. I'm thinking of buying, because I do want to play Super Mario 3D World, is it called?
Yep.
I do want to get that. I might buy one of Nintendo's golden tickets.
So
instead of
he's got the golden ticket.
What?
Oh, sorry, it's a reference to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, right. Which
the original 1971 one, not the new one.
What, is that the Gene Wilder one?
It's the Gene Wilder one, yeah.
That's the one I know, but I don't remember this song.
He's got the golden ticket.
It's when you've got a better memory than I do, because I don't remember.
When Charlie finds the golden ticket and he's running around the streets. I got one. It's a brilliant moment and just an excellent film.
I agree, it is an excellent film, but I don't remember the song.
Sorry.
So I might buy one of those, because you get, because Nintendo games tend to be £50 new, so instead you get them for around 40 each, so you save 20 quid in the long run. Because those are two games that I'm interested in, I will hold on to one of those tickets for Mario next year. And play Hyrule Warriors now.
Jealous of that, mate. I'm saving my monies up to try and get into this next gen of gaming, so I probably won't be buying a new game anytime soon. But if I did have the money, I would definitely be purchasing that, because from your excellent video review and also from a lot of stuff I'm seeing, looks like it's going to be heaps of fun.
Yeah, looks great. I'm just excited to go back into that world. In fact, it's made me more tempted to just go back and play Breath of the Wild, because what a game, what a vibe.
Yeah, I'm similar in that I love it, but I don't know if I could start a new game. I might just load it back up again and just run around and piss about.
Yeah, the problem is that I I didn't actually like fully complete. I mean, I was never going to fully complete it because I was never going to borrow the Korok seeds and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I got to. I mean, you can do the mythical. What are they called? They're not mythical beasts. That's
Yeah,
the
they are.
Rhett and Link YouTube channel thing. Is it?
No, mythical beasts.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
find
right.
the 4 mythical beasts, I'm fairly sure.
I don't think they're called. I've got a feeling they're not called that. I'm going to have to look it up now. Breath of the Wild Beasts. Divine Beasts.
Oh, knew it. Didn't know it, but yeah.
Yeah, but so Divine Beasts. You could do them in any order, but I got to the last one, and I can't remember what year it was. When did the Switch come out? 17?
Yeah, start March 2017.
So it would have been Christmas 2017 when I was like heavily into the game, and at some point I must have just started playing something else and put it down. So when I like loaded it back up, I was like, oh, I was playing this. I need to go back. I was in the middle of a Divine Beast, and like all my muscle memory had gone. So I think I probably would start again.
You've got to jump back into that. Yeah, start again, man, because it's worth doing. Because doing like Hyrule Castle is great. Once you've beaten all the Divine Beasts and you go in Hyrule Castle, it's wicked.
Yeah, so I think I will go back at some point. But whether that distracts me from Hyrule Warriors and whether I get that day one or not, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, thanks for all the views. And if you haven't seen them, Hyrule Warriors video, our previous live stream, and also Bellum did a lovely little trailer, sort of cut down of our live stream, which you can find on Twitter and Instagram, which is like a little highlights reel. So please do go check those out. Jiggy is still MVP or MVL, most valuable listener. So you know what that means.
1, 2, 3.
Jiggy, just get jetty. I with Grace and Betty could beat you in any race.
Yep, that's correct.
Jiggy, just get jetty. Games he's finished plenty, and he'll wipe that smile off your face. Wipe that smile off your face.
Jiggy, Jetty, everybody.
Hot damn! What a jingle!
That's correct. It is a jingle.
My girlfriend Lorna said we should just do a whole song of that because she really, really likes it, and she was like, "You'd probably have to change the name and do it about someone else." And then she's like, "No, actually, just do a full song about Jiggy." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll do it."
Yeah, do it. If you write some verses, I've already got like a breakdown section in my head. So like for a drum, for like drum solo breaks.
Yeah.
So like.
Well, now I
so,
want to hear it. So yeah, I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah, cool. We'll do that. Anyway, MVL rules. If you want to become MVL, most valuable listener, and get your own jingle, tag us on Twitter or Instagram or wherever and tag 5 people. And that's all you need to do. It's that simple.
It is that simple. And I would just like to point out that if you do tag us in something, whether that is, a shout out or whatever, remember to tag 5 other people. Because I believe Mops Me, listener of the show, he did it. Sorry if I've got the pronunciation of your tag wrong, but you gotta let us know that you've somehow reached 5 people, because otherwise it's not quite enough. So yeah, if you want to become MVL, make sure you tag people and prove that people have seen it.
But yeah, no, thank you, Mops Me. We see your YouTube comments and Instagram and stuff. We do appreciate the support.
We appreciate it.
You always leave lovely little messages and things, so thank you. Hey, this is we're going to slightly abbreviate this, because actually on the live stream we did talk about what we were playing last week. So we're going to do an abbreviated version of that this week in case you didn't watch the live stream. But very quickly, what have we been playing this, it's past 2 weeks really now, isn't it?
Yes.
Week and a half.
Week and a half. Yeah, I said on my on the stream that I finished Katana Zero. I've already talked about that. Brilliant game. It's on Game Pass. It's also on various platforms. Please do check that out. It is a nice, short, really good action side-scrolling game with a really fun story. So go and check that out. Ni no Kuni, beautiful game. Studio Ghibli, still playing through it. Charming, good, hard fun. I don't know why I use the word hard then. It's quite soft. It's good fun. What else? Gears Tactics, gave that a good start. That's having some fun with that. I need to get back into it a little bit more, but I've been derailed from playing that because EA Games, EA Play or whatever it's called, has come to Games Pass. So I've been jumping into Titanfall 2. And I also talked about that on the stream. But the single-player game in that, single-player campaign in Titanfall 2 is just, it is a peach, an absolute succulent peach right from the tree. and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. I just did a level where there was some time travel going on. What the heck?
Did you say right from the tree or ripe from the tree?
I think I said right from the tree, like right. But I should have said ripe from the tree.
If you said ripe from the tree, I really rate that as a phrase. Ripe from the tree.
Oh, just ripe from the tree. Well, I'm definitely going to start using it. It's really good, man. I just did a level where you start time traveling all over the place, and I was like, that is not an element I expected to be in this already far out mech-based futuristic combat game. There was time travel too. It's great. It's really good fun. Titanfall, so definitely check that out. Well, smart. Tetris Effect connected, brilliant. That's a lot of fun. That's about it, really. Oh, I jumped into Peggle 2. I also mentioned that on the stream. You just cannot beat Peggle. I think it's the best puzzle game ever created.
Yeah, that's a weird coincidence because I downloaded Peggle 1 literally over a week ago and was playing that. I was just like, this is glorious. It's it's quite simple, but there is a challenging element to it, and the silly characters, the music, it's just great. Gotta love a bit of Peggle. So I've been playing a little bit of Peggle.
It's so good. Brilliant. Yeah. Sorry, what have you been up to, man?
Yeah, bit of Peggle. Also Katana Zero, based off your recommendation. Love it. I don't know if this made it. Maybe I said this on the live stream, but I contest that it does what Hotline Miami does, but in a more satisfying way.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yes.
Okay, yeah, but what I would say is that it is very different because it's the story element is far more integrated into the overall gameplay, and also it's a 2D side scroller instead of that sort of faux 3D space. So it is different, and I didn't play Hotline Miami 2. However, I've just gotten stuck on something and I'm just like, wow, it's difficult. But it's great. Really enjoying that. Rogue Legacy 2, just still smashing on with that and upgrading the tree. I unlocked a new class, which wasn't in the first one. Well, there's a few new classes, but one in particular just called Chef. And you play as a guy with you get a pan.
Right.
And so every weapon in the game feels different, but the pan, you push the button and there's a slight lag because you're doing like a baseball bat swing with it. So you push the button and you've got to be aware that there's a bit of a slower draw on it. But the ability of that is that it can reflect projectiles back at enemies, which is just a great stupid thing. And you can cook things to give you health and mana back. So it's just it's great. So I'm enjoying that.
I would definitely be playing as a chef every run. Without a doubt.
So Rogue Legacy 2, ongoing. Still can't beat the first boss. Pain in the ass. Valorant. So I mentioned that Geordie and Gary invited me to play in Valorant last Friday and was learning the game. And I talked about on the stream how it's sort of like a slightly less sweaty CSGO. The barrier to entry is slightly lower because you've got abilities and stuff. It just gives you more opportunity to mess around with people or escape and that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. I think it's quite a well-polished game, plays very smoothly. And I've played a lot more since then, and I'm learning more characters and stuff. And it's just great. I think it's definitely a challenging sort of shooter in that terms, but I would say it's probably has more appeal than CSGO because, as I've said in the past, people that are good at CSGO, you don't have a chance. Whereas in Valorant, there's more scope for you to get involved and be active. But it's great, and I'm enjoying it. So that's what I've been playing.
That's really nice, man. I'd like to get involved with Valorant with you, but I don't think it's on console yet. So no. And also it wouldn't really work cross-play on that because, like you said, it's very, very sort of esports minded, but
esports,
pro player vibes. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Also, Riot don't make games for console, although they're making a PS5 story-based League of Legends story RPG.
Okay,
yeah,
fair dues. Anyway. I also forgot to mention that I've been playing Goner 2. Goner 2, which is a...
One N, double N, triple N?
Double N. And it's basically a very artistic, weird, roguelike and it's very hard, but it's fun. And I wouldn't have paid money for it, but it's good because I got it on Game Pass, and it's on Switch as well. I didn't play Gone 1, but it's a cool looking game. And hard shoot 'em up vibes. But yeah, thought I'd mention that.
Right. Okay.
So we'll move on to the news now, Mark.
A lot of this is kind of old news.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose we're going to race through it.
Let's race through it. I think. Yeah, so obviously the next generation has happened. So a lot of the stuff that's sort of going on is reactions to the next generations, testing everything out, finding out what is and isn't working and all that sort of stuff. And reviews are coming out for the launch titles. And by that, I mean the launch titles for PS5 because the Xbox didn't have any. But they are coming out. But we do have some little tidbits of news for you. So first one, which is slightly odd, is that PS5 won't support SSD expansion at launch. It's already launched, and there is an SSD expansion for it. But you can only assume that that's coming somewhere down the line, especially because it only apparently has about 650 gigabytes of usable space. So on the box it says it's about 850. Ish, I don't know the exact number, but obviously a lot of that is used up for the operating system and all that sort of stuff. So there's actually only about 660 odd gigabytes of usable space on the console. So yeah, if you had Call of Duty on it about 5 times, that might be a little bit tricky. But yeah, so the slightly odd omission, isn't it, that they don't have that support ready quite yet, but. I mean, we can only assume that people aren't instantly filling up their hard drives, but it might have happened.
Yeah, the sort of the next gen titles which will be large, aren't out yet, so they'll have that ready, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I was mid sneeze.
That's all right.
It didn't come out either. It's really unsatisfying.
Oh,
anyway.
That's the worst. Sorry, bro. Sorry for your loss.
That's all right. Yeah. So that PS5 exclusive game Deathloop, which is owned by Bethesda, which is now owned by Xbox, is now scheduled to release on May 21st. It's also popped up on Steam, so you can pre-order it on Steam as well. So PC and PS5. What's the phrase? The donkey's out. The jury's out. The jury's out on whether.
I prefer the donkeys out.
I couldn't remember what the thing was. The jury's out on whether that'll be available on Xbox. Presumably it will at a later date.
I assume it'll be a timed exclusive. I mean, it was rumored to be that anyway, but now Xbox own Bethesda. I mean, I assume it won't be a timed exclusive for very long. They did say they'd honour it for an amount of time though, so we'll see with that.
Well, good on them for playing nice anyway, I suppose.
Oh yeah.
Let them have it for a bit. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Microsoft seem to play pretty nice in general, but yeah, especially good of them to do that. Next up, this is a pretty fresh one. There's been a packaging leak for Cyberpunk on the PS4, and on the box it says the game is 60 gigabytes. Sorry, I can't even read. Will be 70 gigabytes minimum, which is slightly odd wording, but I suppose that's because it will get bigger with patches, etc.
Is it because they wrote it as 60 gigabytes gap, 60 gigabytes gap, 70 gigabytes minimum?
Yeah,
that is a weird way to write it, to be fair.
It's very weird. Weird pranksters. Anyway, it will be on 2 discs on the PS4. Sort of not surprising for such a huge game, but also
Final Fantasy VII Remake was. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's odd to get that these days, games on multiple discs, but at the same time, when a game is that big, makes sense. But yeah, it hasn't been revealed about what that will look like on next gen, but I don't know if they're actually going to be releasing physical editions for next gen. I think it's still very much you buy the Xbox One or the PS4 version, and then when you put it on your console, there'll be a patch eventually. I think it's coming start of next year, the sort of next gen patch. I'll be getting it on Xbox One because my brother's getting it for me for my birthday, which has already happened. So eventually, when it happens, I'll get it. So yeah, and then if I get an Xbox Series X down the line, we'll get a free upgrade, which is nice. But yeah. 70 gigabytes, pretty big. I think that's also the same size on the PC.
Yeah, it will be 70 gig when it comes out, and maybe a little bit more for patch, and then. it'll be, I mean, I don't know, 120 gig with who knows how big, it depends what it is. Is it like going to be a huge texture pack or something?
Yeah,
who
true.
knows? So it could be like 40 gig by itself, and that would obviously make it 110. Like, I'm speculating. I've no idea.
Yeah.
So
just picking numbers
we'll
out
have
of
to
his
see.
arse, basically. But that's something Mark likes to do. It's a fun thing to do. That's that news. And another one, Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, said he's played a decent amount of Elden Ring, which is, of course, the new game from Software's Miyazaki and written in part by George R.R. Martin. And Phil had this to say: "It's the most ambitious game Miyazaki has ever made," which is a nice sentence.
Yeah, mate, it's exciting. He's a tease, this Phil Spencer. Why has he gone and said that? I don't want to know that. You tart.
Also, the thing that this is just a bit of a tangent. The thing that fascinates me about this game as well is that what George R.R. Martin is sort of known for doing is very much the interpersonal,
not finishing stuff.
Well, that too. Well, which is why it makes sense with Elden Ring, but also it's the interpersonal and the political relationships that made Game of Thrones so hugely popular. In terms of the world building and, the creatures and the people, it wasn't hugely I don't know, this is my opinion, it wasn't hugely sort of groundbreaking, game-changing, in that it was just a fairly standard mythical world, I suppose, incorporating basically the zombies in the White Walkers as alongside stuff like dragons. So that's like, that's pretty cool. But really the thing that he did so well is all of the political stuff and the clan, the families, and how they fight for the throne. It'll be interesting to see what his part to play in the writing of this game will be, because that the lore in From Software games, as we both know, is always been something that the player sort of had to find out for themselves. So it's going to be interesting to have such a prominent writer on board to see how that's going to sort of manifest.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and I haven't thought about it like that, actually. Sorry, I'm processing that.
No,
that's a great point, because you're so right.
They're going to want to showcase his writing, because to have someone, pretty much the biggest fantasy writer on the planet right now, to have him involved in your game and to be associated with the franchise, or at least From Software games that obviously have excellent stories and world building that is so brilliant, but it is very much at the player's behest to go out and find that story for themselves. Other than sort of, I don't know, creature creation and that sort of thing, how is George R.R. Martin going to be a part of all that? Maybe that's something we could talk about on a bit more at length on a future episode, and sort of like what our hopes would be like for that, because I've just absolutely thrown this tangent at you, Mark, out of nowhere.
Yeah, we should definitely do an episode on it. The thing is, I don't know what anyway, but I mean, I'm just trying to think, maybe I'm making this up. Did Guillermo del Toro work on, what was the PS4 exclusive?
Bloodborne.
Did he work on Bloodborne? Or am I being thick and making that up?
I don't know. He's definitely worked on a video game before, which isn't very helpful.
Bloodborne. No, I don't think it was. But he was going to be working with.
Was he going to be working on PT with Hideo Kojima?
He was going to be working with Hideo Kojima, which never came to be. I mean, the trailers. There are loads of people on YouTube that basically dedicate a channel to the lore and the background and sort of unpacking everything that is squeezed into the 3 Dark Souls game. Well, 1 and 3 in particular. And just deep diving into the meanings and what's linked to where, and the sort of shifts in time and all that sort of thing. And people have, immediately tried to do that, absolutely pick apart that teaser trailer for Elden Ring and what everything means. And it's amazing the amount of detail. And I mean, it's massively speculation, but it's incredible the amount of detail and the sort of ideas that they can pick out and themes that are evoked from even just the certain type of armor or a symbol. And it's just like, oh my goodness, these people are so into it. But you're totally right. Are they going to be able to fuse together and the writing in a way which is not more apparent that it's written so much, but the idea of an actual a followable narrative, rather than something that is very much you're playing something and you get involved in it and you find little bits and you kind of have to piece it together yourself, or rely on these YouTubers to really bring out all the themes and stuff.
That's it.
That's a great point that I hadn't considered before.
Because the thing is, I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but I think like it could very much be that they are using it as, you know, a bit of marketing, and that he might just be like a consultant. He might be helping with the world building or something like that, whereas he's not actually, you know, sat there writing the script for Elden Ring.
Yes.
But it could very much be like, oh, just attaching his name to it is enough for someone new to come to a From Software game. We don't know, but we'll hopefully we'll find out more. But Phil Spencer himself has said it's the most ambitious game ever made. So that would make you think that, you know, there's something new about it. It's not like the other FromSoft games. But hopefully we'll get more on it, because it's a game that I'm sure both me and you would be hugely excited to play.
Oh, hugely. I admit, though, I didn't like Sekiro.
I haven't played that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I love Miyazaki's work. I love Dark Souls, like really genuinely love it. But Sekiro was just a very different experience that didn't vibe with me. That's probably another subject, to be honest with you. It's not that it's a bad game, but it wasn't for me.
You do famously hate samurais.
Yeah, I'm very anti-samurai. Anyway, the next piece of news is that Apple have released their own Apple Silicon. They were moving to their own ARM-based chips. They're based on the mobile A13 that's in your iPhone 12 and all that sort of thing. And they've called it M1. So what does that mean? It means a lot of integration with their other platforms, i.e. their iPads and their iPhones, because all the architecture is now very similar. It means that the App Store will include everything, not just stuff that's for their desktop and laptop things and stuff that's for their handheld devices. We're still waiting on the benchmarks and sort of the overview of like how it's going down, because it's a big transition off of Intel CPUs for them. But they're releasing a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro 13-inch, and a Mac Mini. That's all I'll say on that. But it's an interesting time. Bit of a techie one, that, but I thought it was worth just saying that it's happening.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if that has any kind of effect on gaming on Macs, and also if they decide, hey, now's the time that we're going to try and bring more gamers to Macs. We'll see.
I doubt it. I mean, there is a market. There's obviously a market out there for mobile gaming and such. I suppose one of the plus points of this is that because the Apple Store is now going to be one big, nice, homogeneous blob, rather than like things that are compatible for iPad, things that are compatible for Mac, you can now access all those mobile games. So Among Us, for example, is available for free on the iPhone, iPad. You'll just be able to put it on your Mac for free now.
It'd be interesting to see how they do the because obviously a lot of games are like touch controlled on phones. So I wonder how they'll do that.
Nintendo Apple partnership.
Great, sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, no idea.
Also interesting how they named the new Silicon after the longest motorway in the UK, connecting London and Leeds. So wonder why they went for that.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were thinking. Let's base it off the UK's most boring motorway.
And first as well, hence the M1. Anyway, big piece of news next that we talked about shed loads on this podcast about the rumours around this thing. If you did watch our stream the other day as well, we talked about it right at the end and left it on a very sour note with Mark, but we'll get on to that. The Mass Effect Legendary Edition has finally been announced. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Whoa, you went above. Brave.
Yeah, sorry.
This is a little quote from the website Hypebeast. Don't know why I went on that, but it was the first thing that came up. Just thought I'd get you some nice official quotes. The new edition will feature improved visuals and previously released DLC content. That's exciting for me because I never played any Mass Effect DLC. BioWare? I don't know how that came out. These tablets I'm taking, man.
That's a Nestle drink, isn't it?
BioWare. Very close, very good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
So it worked. BioWare has noted that its intention for remastering the games is so that new and returning players will be able to play the classic trilogy in the, quotes, best possible form. Character models, textures, shaders, resolution, and frame rates have all been revamped. I'd like to look at the word revamped there. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're new. So your shepherd, male or female, isn't necessarily going to look totally different. It probably means they're just going to look a little bit more crisp and sharp, new textures.
Yeah, it usually means upscaled. So it usually just means upscaled resolution, texture enhancement, sometimes lighting and tessellation. It's not really going to be that huge. It's still going to look and play the same way. My worry is that because Mass Effect 1 is the oldest, it needs the most work. So they'll probably put the most time and work into making that look like Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So what I expect will happen is there'll be no real discernible difference apart from FPS increase on 2 and 3, but Mass Effect 1 will feel like this huge leap for anybody that has gone back and played it.
Yeah, I mean...
That's my worry. Because
Mass Effect 1 is old now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an old, and like if anyone has gone back and played that, which I did not that long ago, it feels old, and also the gameplay feels old. In the 2 and 3, clunky. 2 and 3 brought a lot of changes to the combat, and 1 just feels a little bit dated. In a way, it's a shame that they haven't remade 1 or at least brought the combat from 2 and 3 to 1. But in a way, do you want to do that? Do you want to just keep it as this sort of time capsule of old gameplay? And I don't know, it's up for debate, obviously.
The thing is that if they're going to use quotes such as best possible form, then you ought to remake it, and you ought to like go back into the script and redo the story for 3 and integrate everything in. Like if they're going to use that phrase, then do it properly. But what we're really going to see is Mass Effect 1. They're all going to play the same, and they're great games. I sound like I'm massively on a downer. I love them, but what you're going to see is Mass Effect 1 just looking how you remember it in your mind's eye, and then Mass Effect 2 Mass Effect 2 and 3 will just have higher FPS and a
little bit crisper.
A little bit crisper. It's not going to be some sort of mind-blowing experience, but like for people like yourself, especially who haven't played all the DLC and all the rest of it, this is kind of prime. Like, because obviously, we love it, and you can go back and play it. For me, it's now looking a bit like I don't think I'm going to get all the updates that I would kind of want, and especially the thing we're about to go on to that I'm annoyed about.
Yeah.
And I already have 1, 2, and 3 in PC, and because they're not going to massively change 1, it's still going to have too many ammo types and be a bit clunky. Yeah. I'll just play it as it is because I
also
love them.
On PC, there will be a load of probably fan-made patches with like texture packs and updates that you can already make it look as kind of
it could be modded.
Yeah,
could mod it. I could be bothered, but yeah.
But the next piece of news, the sort of subsection of this is that they aren't including multiplayer from Mass Effect 3. And now this has no bearing on me whatsoever because I never played it. So I'm kind of like, don't care. I love the single player. Give me those choices. Give me Rex and all of my boys back. But you're pretty bummed about that.
I'm pretty bummed, and it's the reason I'm not going to buy it because of what I just said. It's not like a complete rebuild. They're not really... I mean, I wasn't expecting them to fix the story in 3, but the games are basically going to play how they always played. And I already own them on PC. So buying this again doesn't make a lot of sense. The reason I would buy it again is because of the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. And you're probably thinking, Mass Effect multiplayer, that sounds like a terrible idea. If you bother to actually go in and play it, and that people are still playing this, you can open up Mass Effect 3 on Origin and people are still online playing it. They genuinely just nailed a weird little like wave clearing thing where you can play as like almost any of the races, like the Volus and all that sort of thing. It's great. And it's just a lot of fun and gave a little bit of extra replayability. And it's also a nice way to kind of, once you have got all that salt in your mouth from the end of ME3 story, it's a nice way of like cleansing and still playing a bit of Mass Effect. And because EA are doing all their crossplay stuff, it would have been great to like buy that and then like obviously play through the story, and that's fantastic. To then jump into multiplayer with you or whoever and like start again and like build up all the characters. But for me, I'm now thinking, as a PC player, I'm thinking, I already own these. They're going to be the same game. I don't think I'm buying this. And I'm really sad about that.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, like I said, it doesn't affect me massively, but I guess it's the sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? The joy of, what's the word? What's the phrase when you don't know about something so it can't really affect you?
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss, that's it. So It doesn't bother me because I've never played it. But it's a shame that I'll never get a chance to. You never know; they might add it at a later date. That sort of thing does happen. So it could happen. And at that time, would you then be interested in hopping in if they did bring it?
Yeah, definitely. It's a weird ultimatum, I know, because like the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer is not the reason you buy Mass Effect Trilogy.
No.
And I understand that. So it sounds like I'm being petty, but it's more that because these changes aren't going to be huge, I can already play the games and I love the story, but I can already go back and play them. So that would be the turning point where it's like, yeah, you know what? I will play them with enhanced graphics and really enjoy them, with a slight boost in whatever they're doing to it. Plus I get to do some crossplay, start again. There'll be a bigger multiplayer base again because people are more likely to play the remaster over the old one on Origin, no less. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at, but never mind, eh?
And just finally, they did say that there'll be some targeted enhancements. That's another quote for the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X versions. So I assume that'll just be, again, upscaling or getting it towards 4K resolution and higher FPS. I don't really know what that'll mean, but it'll be something like that, won't it? It'll just make it extra level of crisp. Who knows? Yeah, so that's everything on the Mass Effect Trilogy Legendary Edition, but they also teased a little extra thing, didn't they, Mark?
They did. BioWare has put together a team of veterans to start work on another Mass Effect game. And we've got a quote here from BioWare's Casey Hudson, which we've taken from PC Gamer. And he said, "We are in the early stages on the project and can't say any more just yet." So basically, we're doing it, baby, is all they've said.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting.
It fills me with fear and that other word I've forgotten the name of. But I think we're going to do next week a discussion on what we'd want from Mass Effect, because obviously Andromeda was a ginormous dumpster fire, but we both loved the trilogy a lot. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that.
I think, all of this news of the Legendary Edition and them saying this has kind of got us reminiscing a little bit about the original trilogy and sort of in an ideal world, in a dream world, what it would mean for them to do a brand new Mass Effect game, whether it'll be an Andromeda 2, whether they'll be totally scrapping Andromeda, whatever it's going to be. I think, next week we're going to dedicate the episode, or at least a good chunk of it, to sort of our ideal Mass Effect game, what that would look like, that sort of thing.
Yeah, baby.
Interesting to see that he says a team of veterans, because he didn't say a team that worked on the original trilogy. It's most likely to be people that worked on Andromeda, but the people that have just been around BioWare for a long time. So we'll see. I think
it's a way of instilling confidence, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
We've brought together a team of incompetent bastards from Andromeda that can't animate. Here we go, baby.
I mean, basically what he said is we've put together a team of old people to start work on the next. As in, like, he's not saying that these people are going to make it a good game. They're just saying they've been around a while.
Well, maybe it's actual veterans and they're going, we were in Nam, we don't know how to code.
Just a load of Vietnam veterans. We got these people in because they've seen war, man.
Do they know how to code? Absolutely not.
So we'll see what happens with that. There's loads to speculate. But we thought we'd move on to a little bit of a sort of a topic today. Now that next gen is out, now that we're balls deep in the current generation, I suppose. Well, it's not the fifth generation of games. I sort of say that because it's the PS5, but I suppose you've kind of got to go back a bit further than that. If you're counting the first Nintendo as the first proper console, I suppose this is the seventh generation.
No, you can go further back than that. You
got to go back to the Commodore and the
Pong machine.
So the Atari and the Commodores and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we're on the new generation now. It has happened, except the PS5 isn't out in the UK yet. It is out in the US, but the PS5 is coming out this next week, I think.
Saturday, I think, yeah.
Saturday, there you go. So it will be out today if you're listening to the podcast. So now that it's all out, we've had a bit of a chance to look at some videos comparing both the sort of consoles to their previous edition and the new consoles against each other. We thought we'd talk about just in general, is it worth upgrading? Should you upgrade? And also the differences in the generations and all the stuff that goes along with that. So yeah, we've been watching some videos, haven't we, Mark, on Digital Foundry and all that sort of stuff about what's going on.
Digital Foundry, Linus Tech Tips, all these people that do this sort of stuff for a living.
The deep dives.
We talked about in a previous week how the sort of the Xbox One versus X stuff had come out, but there was no PS4, PS5 stuff. All that stuff's coming out the woodwork now. We've got plenty of stuff to watch, so I've had a lot of fun looking at those sort of things. Could we very, very quickly, before we get onto that, could we talk about aesthetics a little bit? Now that we've seen them in people's hands, it's kind of interesting, because obviously promo shots always look lovely. How are we feeling aesthetically about them both as an object, as a thing?
I can't say I like the look of either of them. If I'm totally honest, I'd say the Xbox Series X is inoffensive, and therefore I can't dislike it. I mean, I think it'll look good on a sort of, in your entertainment center, however you've got it set up, because it's there. It is making a bit of a statement because it's a tall boy, and I quite like that. But it basically looks like a mini PC desktop setup, but just little diddy. So I think that's largely inoffensive. And the PS5, I don't know. Obviously, it's giant.
It's so big.
It is insanely big. But I don't know. I feel like it just looks like something from the Jetsons. It looks like from something that's this is what I imagine the future to look like. I don't mind it. I'm not going to hate on it, but I don't like it. That's where I'm at.
I'm not in love with it. It's a bit I don't know. The thing is that we're talking about cross-generational differences, and in terms of that, you described the Xbox One as designless. I'd actually argue that the Xbox Series X is actually more designless because it's literally a box, but because it's not huge, I agree with you. I think that next to a TV or on a desk, actually, that would look quite smart. Yeah. Whereas the Xbox One, to me, had a shiny surface and a matte surface and a stupid grate, and it looked like a hideous 90s VCR. It
did. Yeah.
Whereas this new one, I actually look at it and I go, well, actually, that would look really smart, and it's quite a nice size. The PS5 is just a bit bombastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those things where with the X, the Series X, it's like if you lived with someone, whether that be your girlfriend or your parents, whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just sick of you always having your consoles out, making the room look disgusting." I feel like the Series X, obviously it's tall, but it wouldn't sit in your room and be like a statement, whereas the PS5 really is that.
So much. I think if the PS5 was the same size, it would help. But the fact that it's a pretty bombastic, futuristic design, and it's like a megaton bomb is a bit here's my PS5, baby. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just slam it on the desk and break it in half.
It's like boy racers that have spoilers on the back of their car. It's that sort of console.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the sort of design aesthetic and the fact that they sort of bothered to design it in the first place, but I'm not in love with the way it looks. I think they actually nailed the PS4. The PS4, for me, I mean, I didn't like the controller and I never bought one, but in terms of aesthetics, I actually really loved the way that looked, because
it was angled front.
It was like a stepped thing, yeah. I thought it was quite a clever look, but it was also just really sleek. But it was also a bit of a hark back to the PlayStation 2, because if you remember, the PlayStation 2 was kind of that stepped rectangle.
PlayStation 2, I always thought, just looked like a modern block of flats.
Yeah, you are right. But the little ridges and stuff, and they sort of did. It felt like a similar thing, but done in a different way. I thought it was a real little nod to the PS2, which I enjoed. I thought that looked great. Whereas the PS5, it's probably not going to age well. Is how I'd put it.
No, but
yeah,
people
controller
are loving
looks
that.
Great though.
I was going to say, people are really loving that controller, man. And I've got to say, the fact that if you look in real close to it, the fact that the textured grip on it is just loads of the
square, triangle, circles, X's.
The sacred symbols, the X, circle, triangle, square. I think that's rad. I think that's so cool.
That is sick. Yeah. Or as someone said, though, I hope it doesn't add $10 to the price.
Well, it may very well be doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what about the actual tech itself, the generational
what
leaps?
it does under the bloody hood, Mark.
How do we feel about that? I like the fact they're both quiet, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing a lot about both of them, is that they're whisper quiet, baby.
Yeah, I think that's been. That was a huge piece of criticism. I think they both had it, but I heard a lot about the PS4 that it could sometimes sound like a rocket engine.
It was more. It was more PS4 Pro. Was like
PS4 Pro.
someone taking off. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they've done, and I think that's partly why the PS5 is so huge, because they really wanted to make sure that the fans, the cooling systems, everything were going to work really well. And by all intents and purposes, they seem to have nailed that. At the cost of a few too many inches, but yeah, it sounds like they've absolutely smashed that, and it's whisper quiet, which is great, because if you want to go sneak downstairs and play on your Xbox when your mum and dad have gone to bed, you can do that now because it won't shake the whole house.
Yeah, but I'm hearing the same things about Series X. Can't speak about the S in terms of noise, but in fact, no, I can. I think someone did a comparison, and they're both about the same, very quiet.
Yeah,
so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, in a previous episode, we did vaguely talk about the Xbox One versus the X, and how a lot of games are interacting differently in terms of Xbox One games. But in general, the upscaling and the HDR is making a really lovely difference, and those load times are great. So it seems that all of the backwards compatibility and the upscaling is working all fine and dandy, and that's a great thing.
And also, just to point out that it happens without any sort of patch or download having to be done. It just senses it's a backwards compatible game, and it just does it, which is great. I mean, not to say that it's like, that feels like how it should be. So it's almost kind of like, I shouldn't commend them too much for it. But the fact that you do just do it, and it does all of these things without really having to make a big fuss out of it, I think is great.
We're finally seeing the S versus X come out, which is also an interesting point, because it's the price difference is about $200, I believe. And, the question is, what are you getting for your money? One thing I said earlier in this console war was, I suppose the plus point of the PS5 and its two price points is they're the same under the hood. You're not compromising, and Sony can use that as a marketing ploy to say, PS5 baby, it's powerful. Buy either, and it's a powerful little boy. You're going to be fine. Whereas, what is the S actually offering? Is it actually worthwhile you buying it over the X? And would you regret it getting in the long run if you then upgraded to a 4K whatever TV and that sort of thing? So what are your thoughts on the S and what you've seen so far, like in terms of performance, and would you get one over the X?
So I think me as like an adult, an adult 30-year-old man, and as I would probably describe myself as a hardcore gamer, and someone who calls himself a gamer, and someone who owned an Xbox One, I think if I'm going into the next gen, I want a considerable step up. And for me, a lot of that is going from HD 1080p to 4K and seeing that step up. So for me, the Xbox Series S doesn't really sort of it doesn't feel like it's for me. However, so from what I've seen, it is doing, in terms of performance and speed, it is loading up games quicker. Just, I don't know, compared to the X, I know that it is loading stuff very quick, just because it uses the same SSD technology, but it's just less teraflops, I think it is.
So there's less power in the GPU, but the reason it's loading up slightly quicker is because because it's a less capable console. The games themselves are slightly smaller, so there's actually less to load.
There you go.
But we're talking like 10 or 20 seconds of your life. Like, it's not really,
exactly.
It's not a huge difference.
But obviously, it doesn't have the same graphical power as the X. So for me, this is for someone who potentially slept on the current generation, so Xbox One. If you're a lapsed gamer and you're thinking, hey, the quarantine and lockdown has really made me think I want to get back into gaming, but I don't have the budget, it might be for you. Also, if it's, that £240 price point might make it a Christmas present for a kid who wants to be get into games more or wants to feel like they're moving with the next gen, who probably wouldn't notice if it's 4K or not. They're just going to feel like they've got a next gen console. It's for those kind of people. It's a budgetary thing. It's not for me. Like I said, I want to be able to feel the full power of the next generation. So I think for people like you and me, it might seem a little bit redundant, but I do think there are people with budgetary concerns, and also people who might not have a 4K TV as well, but do want to take a next step. I do feel like there is a place for it, but I think it's a strange one. I don't think it's not something that to a lot of people just makes sense. Like, why would I get the clearly less powerful thing, but it's £200 cheaper? So I think that has to be taken into account.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely not worth it. I don't really understand why there would be a generational leap where you're then doing like a half step. I don't. It's very strange to me, especially when these next gen titles come out. This thing will not run 4K 60. It's clearly not going to be capable of that. I think you're right. This is really for two use cases. This is for parents who go, should we treat them to a console, but aren't going to spend £400 or £500 on a console or whatever. It's for those. It's also potentially for the gamers that, and we say this a lot, and it sounds like a diss, and it isn't, but gaming is gaming. But it is for the people who, are at home with their girlfriends or whatever, and then their mate says, do you want to come on and play FIFA? Or something like that. Because what would be the point in spending a lot of money on a PC or whatever and only playing FIFA and Call of Duty? Yeah, exactly. And there are people who do that, and I have friends. I have friends that do that a lot, and I don't diss it. And maybe they enjoy some of the older titles as well because they grew up with Crash Bandicoot, and so they play those remakes and things like that. But these are people that are unlikely to pick up, the next big Elder Scrolls RPG or a Miyazaki game or some sort of Japanese Dragon Quest big RPG. Like they're not into that. These are the people who pick up the next FIFA, pick up the next Call of Duty, and play with their mates when they're free to do so. They get home from work and that sort of thing. For those gamers, it's kind of like a mid step where it's like makes sense. It's not, in relative terms, it's not that expensive. But I think for people that actually play games on the whole and want to make that generational leap, it's a weird console. And I think I think the marketing is. I don't think that they're putting the wool over people's eyes, but I think it could be troublesome in the future when next gen game comes out and the S is inadequate, which I think it probably will be. Though I think it does. I think it still does a pretty good job of the upscaling from previous gen. So that is another plus point. Is obviously if you're on Game Pass and you load up your old games, it probably still will look better than it did on the one. It's just a funny one. It's definitely not for me. I think it would be a waste of money on our part for what we would expect and want. Yeah,
I think it's like if I knew someone who had slept. So, for example, we have got a friend, Joe Novelli. He didn't have a console from this generation. If he were to get an Xbox Series S with Game Pass, he's got thousands of not thousands, hundreds of games that he has access to.
Hundreds, millions.
That he has access to instantly from that generation and generations past. It's capable of going up to 120 FPS. So if you are an online gamer, that wants to keep playing Call of Duty, that's a step up, I suppose, in that you are able to play something at 120 FPS. You said, it won't be able to go up to 4K. So if you're not that bothered about graphics, which some people might not be, then it's capable. It is just in that weird middle ground that you mentioned, that it's sort of like, I don't know why I get that. But there may very well be some people that it makes a lot of sense to, but we're just struggling to think of them.
Yeah. So as for the PS4 versus PS5, those have started coming out now. The main thing just being noise. The PS4 Pro, which was the one that sort of did 2K, some 4K, I'm not really sure what it was capable of. It sounded like a flipping meteorite slamming into the earth, killing everyone.
That's a new one.
That doesn't do that anymore on the PS5. And also, I I'm seeing like graphs of it absolutely slammed to 30 or 60 FPS. It depends what on the game engine cap. So if the game can only run up to 30 or 60, it's absolutely capped and does not drift, which is really important. Like you haven't got any dips, whereas it shows PS4 footage of previous games, just sitting around 44 and slightly going up and slightly going down and just being really loud and hot. So that's a great thing. The confusing thing, and this is, I suppose, the main bulk of the topic is backwards compatibility. And Sony's message about backwards compatibility has been all over the shop.
Well, they don't care. They don't get the point of it. They want to move forward. It's not something they massively have cared about. They believe in generations. They believe that PS5 is the next gen, baby. It's a generational thing. Yeah, you might be able to play some games, but we're not that bothered because this is the new generation.
Yeah, and Nintendo do the same thing because because their consoles change so drastically every year and they're different formats, whether it was cartridge to mini disc to standard discs again, back to digital to SD cards to cartridges again. Like they're always changing. So we're used to generational changes and like moving forward and things not being compatible. And it's the same in PC gaming a lot of the time. Older games don't get patched because they're old, baby. So if you haven't got Windows XP, or whatever, there's some old games you won't be able to run. So we're used to that. That's not a problem in my book. But one of Microsoft's strengths has been that they came out and said, and I think it's slightly because they've had to rebuild their brand and rebuild trust a bit, but it is a great move that they've just come out and said, everything's compatible. Xbox 360, Xbox One, you can all play it on your Series X. So that's like, as a consumer, you go, great. At least they run. We don't necessarily know how the 4K scaling, if it's going to be any good, because on some games it's not quite as tidy as others, and the HDR and that sort of thing. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because the games run on your new console. That's good. Sony's message has been, the PS5 controller won't work with some PS4 games, but it will work on this one. Oh, and yeah, we don't really know about discs yet. Oh, yeah, there'll be PS4 games that we're bringing over on the subscription service. Oh, right, but what about these ones? Yeah, that might work. What? Like, I don't, like, I've no idea. If I went out and bought a PS5 and I don't have PS4 games, but I would have absolutely no idea what, like, I'd be getting myself into as a consumer. But there was a video of Digital Foundry that I've watched who basically said, don't worry, everybody, everything's great. And they showed loads of compatibility and like the fact, like I said earlier, it's just running at full FPS depending on the engine. Yeah. But I still don't know I think what games work where and where they don't.
That's the thing. The games that do work really well. It's just with Xbox, everything works. But with PlayStation, there needs to be some kind of clear message about, okay, this is the list of things that work, this is the list of stuff that doesn't. And it's because they are sort of treading water and not being very clear, it isn't great. It's not good messaging, and it makes you hopeful for more, whereas really what they should be doing is either saying everything's backwards compatibility, or it's not, as opposed to having this weird mixed message where you're sort of in this middle ground, and it'll just make people thinking, oh, maybe my PS3 game will actually work one day on it, or whatever it is. Like they're going to give people false hopes. There just needs to be slightly clearer messaging, really. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this with Sony before. The PS1 to PS2, it was all backwards compatible, no problem. That was just kind of like, it was fairly early stages of the technology, so there was no issues there. PS2 to PS3, they really like changed up their processing and the way it was working, so it was very sketchy as to where it was going to work. But at the very least, they said, if you buy the 60 gigabyte PS3, that is the one that can run PS2 games. Any of the other ones, the 40 gig or the 60 or the 80 or any of our new ones, will not run PS2 games. So you're like, okay, fine, at least I know. This is just... I mean, and again, I missed out on 4, so I can't comment. But this is just, I don't know what works. And the Digital Foundry video felt like it was a sigh of relief, not from me, from them, of a lot of these games are working, and thank God they're doing it really well. As if to say, we didn't know either. We're really happy that not only are these games working, but that it's doing it properly. But like, not everyone's going to go and
watch these videos and like find, you're going to go out and buy one because either you want one or you're a Sony fanboy or just because you've made your choice or whatever the case may be. But for me, it's like I've absolutely no clue what's going on.
The thing is, though, they kind of get away with it because they have come out with this really strong launch lineup of like Spider-Man Miles Morales, Demon's Souls, Sackboy, Astro Laird, whatever his name is. Like all of these games that are getting really good reviews. Like they sort of get away with it because they are the original message of we believe in generations is sort of paying off. But weirdly, most of that launch lineup is also on PS4. And as I've just read today, both Miles Morales and the new Call of Duty game are causing issues because the PS5 is loading the PS4 game instead of the PS5 game, and you have to go into the options and tell it to run the PS5 version instead of the PS4 one. So just slightly weird things there, but they sort of
and
get
also
away.
it's running some games at 4040p after we said that apparently it wasn't going to support 1440p.
Yeah.
So again, the message is a bit confusing. So clearly the PS5 does support 2K as well as 4K.
They've put out their first like console firmware like patch update thing today to overhaul some of these bugs and sort some stuff out. So maybe things are going to be, sorted out. I mean, there's always going to be bugs on both sides for a brand new console, especially one that's been developed during a global lockdown. You can sort of expect there to be some issues. It is interesting.
I mean, at the very least, I would say with the lineups as they are, PS5 is the one that feels more like a generational leap, whereas right now the Xbox X feels like a piece of tech that is like doing things that are impressive, but right now I wouldn't feel like I'm making a leap buying one, if that makes sense.
It's the best place to play Xbox games for the last 3 generations, and it plays all of them really, really, really well, really beautifully, smoothly. But if you are someone who wants the next leap, you're not going to see it for a while yet on Xbox because there's no games to do it.
Which I suppose leads us on to our sort of final thing here, which is, should you upgrade? Are you someone that is, either maybe you just haven't got hold of one because scalpers and bots have gone out there and bought them all up, or you just were unlucky? We know that our listener Lawal was able to get hold of an X, good for him. But should you upgrade? Is it worth it right now? Especially the S, based on what we were just talking about. What's your sort of take on this and opinion on this, Bella?
I think it massively depends what kind of person you are. I mean, I'm someone who is kind of admittedly and rather sort of embarrassingly a bit of a slave to the trends and a bit of a slave to tech, in that I don't want to feel behind. I don't want to feel like I'm playing games with people that I mean, you're about to say, well, you need to get a PC then. But like I don't like to think that I have friends that are one step ahead of me. And also, it's just cool, isn't it? Like the new thing, having the new thing always feels great. So I want to, but to do that first, I'm going to have to get a 4K TV. I mean, we were talking about before the podcast started about getting 4K TVs and what's the best one to get. So that's going to be my first step before I even consider. And I would say if anybody is thinking about getting a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, get a 4K TV first. Otherwise, keep playing on your PS4 or Xbox One. And if you can't afford to do that, just wait, because there's no need to do it yet. That's what I would say. I think it also depends what you currently have. If you're a PC gamer, I would probably say don't bother yet. If you are someone who just has a Nintendo Switch, I would say, yeah, definitely think about it, because while the Nintendo Switch is an excellent console and you can play things on the go and it's got a great lineup of games, you haven't experienced the 4K visuals and 60 to 120 frames per second. And if you can afford it, I think it's going to really blow your mind when you see those visuals. But in general, my general point would be, if you don't quite have the money yet, or if you do and you're not sure, just wait. There's no great rush on this generation. If you're a huge fan of Dark Souls, Demon's Souls, and you have to play it, then get a PS5. If you don't, I would just hold off. Is where I'm at, Mark.
Yeah, I agree with that general sentiment. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, I get the excitement, I get the buzz, and I also, am reminded of being a teenager when these generational things came out, and you want to you wanted to be the guy that had the Wii when that was this huge new weird thing that was happening, and it was like, whoa, you could use a sword, man, and all that sort of thing.
I had Wii on day one, and it was the coolest. It was the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, or you want to play on Xbox Live with your mates, or whatever the case may be. You know, I understand all that, but purely from an end user consumer point of view, there is absolutely no rush on this, especially if you don't have a 4K TV and that sort of thing, because you won't leverage the full power of the hardware. But just in terms of games, we're very much in an intergenerational time. Yes, if you are a big Souls fan, the only truly next-gen game currently out really is Demon's Souls, and even that is a remake of an old PS3 game.
Yeah.
But at least it's built from the ground up to be next gen. So there's not really much to offer, especially if you have an Xbox One, because Game Pass is doing everything you need for you right now.
Yeah.
The upgrades in terms of resolution and HDR support isn't going to change your life on those old games. Like, they're still the same games. You're still going to enjoy them.
Yeah.
So I would say that's not worth it.
And every game that's out on Game Pass, there's no exclusive, as far as I know, I might be wrong. There's no games that are Xbox One X or Xbox Series X or S exclusive on Game Pass. So everything that's on there, those consoles, you can play on your Xbox One, whether that's your Xbox One X or S. God, these names are confusing.
Yeah, their naming conventions is bloody
terrible,
awful.
I really hope they fix that for the next one. It's just going to end up being Triple X, and they'll have to get Vin Diesel to be the face of it.
Yeah. Or they'll just call it Xbox and to kind of reset the line, and it will confuse the shit out of everyone again.
Yeah. What I was going to say, as a side note, though, is it's interesting that within the console world there is such a obviously just there is a focus on generations, and that each generation has to bring new games with it. Whereas in the PC world, it's like, well, I'm going to update my PC whenever I see fit, or it might be to coincide with the new game that is coming out, and therefore I want to be ready for that gaming experience. But it is interesting that within the gaming world, if there isn't, it's hard, because if there isn't a new gaming lineup that comes out with the console, it is bad. It's like, well, where's your new games? Whereas in the PC world, it doesn't really work like that.
It's because consoles kind of set the pace, if that makes sense. So what you end up with is there are developers that will develop solely for PC, and back in the day when RTSs were big, you didn't see RTSs on console, so they might push the system a bit more. And another game, like the classic thing would be Crysis. Can your PC run Crysis? So the idea was that we're just going to build an absolute heffalump of a game that is going to set your PC on fire. Let's see how long it takes until someone can actually run this full spec. Whereas consoles are generational leaps that last for 6 to 8 to 10 years. So they kind of set the pace, because everything has to be able to run on that hardware. And there are incremental upgrades that happen up until the point where it's like, oh, the next leap's happening. And in this case, the next leap is 4K, 60 to 120 FPS. So they have to be able to perform that.
Yeah.
So in terms of people that are developing games, the options you get on PC are like minor unlocks or things that are like capable within the engine. So in ignoring this new generation that is out now, that would have been things like, I mean, this is fairly recent still, really, but like the ray tracing and other things like more enhanced shadows, because you don't have to turn these things off if you've got the PC that can run it. But in general, the sort of engines and the generations are very much, the pace is kind of set by the consoles themselves. Yeah. It's not that PC's held back. I'm not salty about it. My PC is not the most powerful PC you could buy anyway.
Right.
But like, there is a sort of sense of the pace and the game engines and that sort of thing. Yeah, you made another good point. What was it? Something about older games and
just I guess just that. I suppose.
Are you always expect a new game with the next?
Yeah,
generation?
just that, like, that it is the expected thing for a new generation of consoles to. I mean, that's been part of Microsoft messaging, is that's not how they're doing it now. It's more to be like, Xbox is the best place to play games, but we aren't seeing this as a generation. We're just seeing this as the best Xbox. That's kind of been their messaging, which obviously backfires when you're up against a console that very much plays the generational game. That is like, here are the best games that look the best because they're the new thing. So, I mean, we're talking about Demon's Souls and I guess Miles Morales here, because those are some of the best new looking games. So therefore, Xbox not having those to show off the console is at their detriment, isn't it? But they're saying, but that's not how we play it anymore, because we're just upgrading the console, but we're not necessarily doing a new generation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is kind of like a more PC-like thing, I suppose, because with PC, we're just used to games come out when games come out, and we've got all the libraries, whether that now be the Xbox Game Pass, actually, on the Xbox app, or more likely Steam, Origin, Epic, Battle.net, and God forbid, the Ubisoft one you play. So we're there's that kind of thing of just games come out when games come out. Like the generational things are like usually like a big thing. So ray tracing. Wow, this game's got ray tracing. Yeah. Sick. That's a new thing. Like you said, yes. When in console land, you're very much used to new generation equals new games with all the nice new shiny features, whatever that may be. So in Xbox land, it's more of a thing of, we've just got a great library of stuff, and it's kind of PC-like in that way of it can now run them, with these specs, and that's really great. But look at all these games we're going to have. Whereas it's exactly what you say, PS5, it's the next generation, baby. Here's your next gen games. Yeah, except some of them have been delayed. But yeah.
Well, you can see why. So
you are right.
You can see why people are leveling the argument of sort of comparing the Xbox Series X to a PC and sort of saying it's just going to be a less effective and cheap PC. Why not just be a PC gamer? If you have that mentality of I don't believe in generations, why aren't you just a PC gamer?
Well, you can't. This is probably another topic for another time. But you cannot you cannot build a PC for what an Xbox Series X costs.
Yeah, it would be very interesting how this conversation would be had Halo Infinite came out as an 8 or 9 out of 10 game and been exclusive to the Xbox Series X. It would be very interesting to see what the conversations would be like. But that's just, obviously that hasn't happened.
Yeah, and also Microsoft's marketing as well. I maybe the message wouldn't have changed all that much. It would have just been, we've also got this great new Halo game or something.
Yeah.
I think we need to let go of Halo, I think Halo's in the past. I think Halo's dead. I'm not just and that's not just me being super pessimistic about Infinite. Yeah. Like, me and a bunch of friends tried to play some Halo the other day, and we just went, "This isn't good. Let's go play something else." We've genuinely reached the point where it's just like, this is aged. Like, and it was a really sad moment, but we were just like, this is shit. Like, it just isn't fun.
Yeah.
Like, whereas Destiny, and it is, I'm bringing that up because it's Bungie, but also because it's really satisfying gunplay. The game's not perfect, and they're under a lot of flack for their recent DLC for good reason. But in terms of moving the gameplay forward, and it's sort of generationally feeling like Halo, because obviously it's Bungie and Guardians, whatever, Spartans, it's really moved forward, whereas Halo just never has. And Xbox have always tried to hang on to like Master Chief as a mascot, whereas Sony have always been somewhat mascotless, and Nintendo are all about the mascots. And it's like Xbox has never made a choice about whether they're going to have these big gaming titles as mascots or just be Xbox, as Sony are just Sony. And I think they just need to let go. And I think
I think it's less about.
And I think gamers need to let go of Halo.
I hear what you're saying, but I think it's less about mascots and more about exclusives, in that Halo was one of very few Xbox exclusives, and Sony has lots of exclusives. So I think that it's more that it was something for Xbox players to cling on to, because it was one of 2 or 3 big exclusive titles. And especially going into this console generation, there's nothing. And I suppose there's a new Forza on the horizon, no pun intended, but that will come out at some point. But I suppose people were being like, that's the exclusive to be excited about. So, yay. Now there's nothing. But
as we've said in the past, Game Pass is a great thing. I think there's no disputing that. The message is clear about backwards compatibility. They're doing a lot right. Xbox have reset themselves. Phil Spencer, as he said in a very early episode of Pushing Buttons, is filling us with hope. So we'll have to see what it looks like in terms of true next gen generational leaps and how important that will be. and how the image of Xbox is going to look moving forward. But the overall, I guess, message of this episode is, should you upgrade? I would wait.
Yeah. I would wait unless you got money to burn and you've got a 4K TV, or you were thinking of getting one anyway. But just hold fire. There's no big rush.
Bye. No.
Goodbye.
Anyway, yeah, that's that. I think we've nailed a lot today.
We have a very interesting
quite a broad subject.
It was, and we could have gone off on many sort of branches of chat there. But I think, you know, if you were someone who wasn't quite, I mean, I'd be surprised if you've been listening to this podcast all this time. But if you're someone who it wasn't quite up to scratch about where they were with the next gen, hopefully we've sort of helped you out a little bit, or maybe confirmed or disproved any thoughts or opinions that you might have had. But I guess let us know what you think and where you stand on getting a new console.
Yeah, we'd love to know if you've got one already. How's it feeling? Does it feel worth it? You got buyer's remorse? Are you enjoying it? How are those controllers?
Can you imagine if you spent 450 quid and you had buyer's remorse? I'd be so gutted. You got the new console and you're just like, oh, this is shit. Just take it back.
Could happen. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Next week, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about Mass Effect. And what we'd want from a new title in the series. And, you know, are they going to sort of build off the dumpster fire that was Andromeda, or put that in the bin and make Mass Effect 4? I'm quite excited by the prospect, but let's have a chat about what we want.
Imagine if they did just come out with Mass Effect 4. That would be so good. And it was
Shepard's
good.
alive. Dun, 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 dun. Oh my God.
Spectre's back, baby, except he didn't want to be on the council, so he's just a laird.
Mass Effect 4. Dun, dun. The Laird.
I feel like we've done that so many times about different franchises. Dum, dum. The Laird. Dum, dum.
Yeah. This is whatever film it is, The Laird.
And by the way, if people, I'm assuming nobody knows what we mean by laird. It's just another way of saying like lad or like good person, but it's just a more fun way of saying it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you do have any feedback or want to get in touch about anything, potentially what you would like from the next Mass Effect game, as that's what we'll be talking about next week, please do get in touch at our email, which is pushingbuttonspod@gmail.com.
And of course, our social media where you can go follow us and get all your little updates and things is from Twitter @PB Podcast UK. Our Instagram is @PushingButtonsPod. And of course, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Pod, Amazon Music, YouTube, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And all our video content, including the demo highlight thingy and our streams and all that good stuff, you can find on YouTube.
Subscribe, smash that notification bell, and don't forget to like, leave a comment, and just hang out with two boys trying to be natural, real, and represent themselves in a clean and... I've ground to a halt.
It's all right. See you next week, everybody.
See you next week. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.